Alrighty, y'all, we have the expansion release in just a couple hours from now, and while I wanted to get a nap in at some point, I did want to bring you all just my general game plan for starting off this season, and what Necromancer build I think will probably give me the most enjoyment. Now, I intended to put out a video about the Sever Necromancer in particular from the review build that I was able to play and gain a lot of great insights into what people generally need to expect walking into this season. But with the changes coming to how minions are going to scale with their most iconic item of the Ring of Mendeln, as well as some other just general buffs to their overall power, I think that the Sever Necromancer leveling guide still fits perfectly into what you should be expecting as far as power, utility, ease of play, essence management, and you get to use all of the minions. So depending on what you find as you're leveling to 60 and beyond, you can kind of tailor your build to get a better output from it, because there's a lot of power that's been added to the Necromancer kit. Now, Adam Fletcher gave us a little bit of a teaser of what is to be expected in the season's journey, which have been very specifically adding sets of aspects and unique drops from the actual seasonal mechanic that tend to fit into the flavor of the class or build that they think is generally going to be the most popular based off of receiving the most buffs. And the two things that have been the most buff are minions and Sever. And what they basically said was that we should expect aspects that relate to shadow and curses. So my first idea is that we're going to get basically the entire Sever package. So the new Reaping Lotus aspect that makes it so that every single time that you cast Sever, it actually shoots out 3 more Reapers after a little cluster attack. Something like Inexorable Reaper, which technically grants mobility to the Necromancer. I'm going to be testing this out on a ton of builds this season, just to see if people like using it. I think I currently have it slated on most speed farming build setups, because it only takes 1 skill point and the 1 aspect on your boots to gain access to it. So I'm excited to try that out as well. And then as it specifically pertains to curses, I can only really expect them to add Cursed Aura, the aspect that says that you now have a little area of effect curse on top of you, so you don't have to manually cast it yourself. And the cool part about it is that since you don't need your curse on your skill bar, you can make room for things like Sever as a mobility skill, or fit both of your minions onto your skill bar as well. Now, if I don't find any aspects that will specifically empower the minions as I go, or I don't happen to drop a Ring of Mendeln, I can dip more into Sever with the addition of Soul Rift, like you're seeing right here. Just a massive, massive overall damage and survivability tool that I think this is basically going to be used on every single Necromancer build. But also the new key passive Affliction, which basically says that whenever you cast your curse on a target, as long as they're under crowd control or have vulnerable or shadow damage over time, you can do free damage. And since you can make Iron Maiden cost 0 essence, you can basically just do free damage without any resources at all. And this really helps to kind of shore up the issues that a lot of early game Necromancers experience. But that being said, if you happen to find a lot of really powerful minion based tools, you basically just swap over your skills over to their damage multipliers and then build more into them. The Codex of Power has aspect of the Damned, which increases your shadow damage against targets, which now works for minions as well. So you can put Aphotic aspect, which makes your warriors do shadow damage, and just naturally use the shadow mages. Then all of a sudden you can buff them just by running a single dungeon. So I think that aspect of the Damned as a really good option. Aspect of Reanimation, which just gives your minions a damage multiplier, which is also available from the Codex of Power. And then the benefit of the Season's Journey aspects, which obviously I'm speculating about a little bit, but I'm not quite sure what other darkness and curse related aspects would actually make a build in the eyes of the developers. The cool part about using the minions early on is that they can help to generate corpses, reduce cooldown for your ultimate, they can help to generate essence, which is probably like their biggest benefit in the early game, as well as cold mages, which are the ones that generate essence. Just naturally chilling and very slowly freezing targets grants a little bit more crowd control, as well as giving you the opportunity to be able to stagger bosses even in the early game. Add on to that, they've actually changed the aspect of Fell Gluttony to be able to scale off of your golem as well. And I think that this is just going to be a huge bonus damage source that you can kind of scale in tandem with your regular minions as well as your own damage. Now, I am personally going to try full minions, like full on minions, once I'm into the end game and I have my gear and I can start tempering and masterworking. I get some GA ancestral gear as well, because I'm really excited to see what the changes to the Ring of Mendeln will do to change their viability as legitimate, both AoE and single target damage clearing. The important thing to keep in mind here, and it was actually a really good conversation I ended up having with Creparian on this topic, basically debating what's going to be the best minion, is that increasing individual minion damage types, like increasing shadow damage with Damned, that's not going to work with Ring of Mendeln. And there's a good chance that Ring of Mendeln ends up hard carrying all of the damage that your minions do. So once we get into that endgame, when we have that ring and we can kind of figure it out, we're going to need to swap over to just purely generic damage multipliers. These are going to be your options like Great Feast, Keck W, I died in this video here. Soul Rift is a generic damage multiplier as well, so that's already good. New Kalan's Edict is a generic damage multiplier for them. Technically speaking, Army of the Dead might be a thing if you can get its cooldown low enough, and then that's obviously a huge damage multi. The sad part about it being that the ultimate outside of that doesn't really offer a lot for the build, so I do think that Soul Rift will be better, but it's just something to keep in mind. Another great insight that Crypt shared with me is that they were able to test the fact that Mendeln actually procs off of the Spirit Wolves from the new rune word. So you're going to be seeing, I think it's Keh, C-E-H, is going to be run on a ton of minion builds. Because it turns out, even if those wolves don't scale as hard as your minions, them having a huge base damage from Mendeln is going to put in a lot of work. But all in all, I'm going to have the build guide, the Sever leveling build guide down below, as well as the endgame minion build. If you wanted to check those out on Maxwell, we have them fully updated. Now, the Sever guide is written by me. The minion build is written by Chronix. So they're going to be a little bit different, right? We have very slightly different approaches. So if you see me live streaming later on today, both on Twitch and on YouTube, please come hang out. I'd love to have you there. But if you see me running something very slightly different, it's because we're just testing out new stuff. I promise you don't have to run off and immediately change your build. Everything is kind of up in the air. It's the start of a new season as well as an expansion. A lot of things are going to be different than we thought. So there you go. I just wanted to give you all a heads up, wanted to give you some guiding light. Now, obviously, something like Blood Surge Necromancer is still going to be an absolutely great starter, but I had such a wildly powerful and fun time force leveling myself from 1 all the way up to 60 on my Sever Necromancer, especially while using the minions, that I figured I'm just going to kind of run this one like I used to in the past. Sever was always a really good leveling build, but it kind of fell by the wayside when the actual meta and the strats around leveling kind of changed to just running dopamine tunnels for a while, and Sever didn't necessarily work to the same degree as something like Blood Surge. But Blood Surge is still great. Minions are going to be good, although you're going to have to actually invest in their survivability a lot more than before, just because we have less stats on gear. And it turns out if you don't add any maximum life armor or res to your gear, your minions are going to suffer for it. But as you get into the end game, they're going to work completely fine. And I think they're going to end up being a really strong A-tier build. And maybe we can push that even further. But like I said, come hang out either on Twitch or on YouTube. Just keep in mind, starting tomorrow, so I think on the 8th, Twitch drops are going to start. So you're going to be able to get free cosmetics just by watching your favorite creators. They'll probably have drops in their description, but just check in with them. They'll probably have a command like !drops, etc. Just so you can go check the list to make sure, hey, the people that I'm watching are going to get me these drops. I think it's basically anybody streaming Diablo 4 can go turn it on, but just double check with them. Similarly, starting tomorrow, once everybody kind of has a day to actually get into the game, since it's a global release, obviously like today on Monday it's releasing here, and technically it's going to be tomorrow, the further east that you go from the United States. I'm actually going to be doing a giveaway of a Vessel of Hatred Ultimate Edition, thanks to Blizzard. Shoutouts to Blizzard, thank you very much. Hashtag Diablo partner, FCC and all of that. It's not sponsored, but I guess it's technically an ad, but just want to put that out there. But I'm excited to be able to give that out to one of our lucky viewers. If I can find a way to get more codes, I'm going to be trying to give away as many of these as I can over the month, so look forward to that as well. But as always, thank you so much for watching. I really hope that this helps you to better enjoy your own season start, and I look forward to seeing you in Vessel of Hatred.